I'm interviewing my grandfather. He will be 86 in May. What year were you born?
1929
Where?
in Peaceburg.
Alabama?
Yes. And you know that Peaceburg is not, it was really not named for the peace, but for named after a Captain Peace who was a Civil War person. Okay?
And Peaceburg doesn't exist anymore, right?
No, that's right.
What happened to it?
Well, Peaceburg, when World War II started in 1941, the Army needed a place that they could train the troops, a live training area, and so they took over Peaceburg and paid everybody for their places, and so everybody moved out, and it was left to the wild animals and the woods and the streams, and so that was the end of what we know as civilian civilization in Peaceburg.
Where did your family move to?
The family moved to another place in Calhoun County named Cedar Springs, and so I transferred from Peaceburg School to Cedar Springs Middle School. Well, it was middle school, I guess. So.
How old were you? About 13 or?
No, I think I was 11 or maybe.
11. Tell us about the war in.
Well, the World War II, which began in 1941, started first with United States and Germany, and then Japan bombed Pearl Harbor on December the 7th, and we were declared war against both of them, and so this lasted until 1945, and during that time, I was too young to go into the military, but I was like all the other teenage boys that wanted to go into the military, and we wanted to be part of the thing that was going on, the excitement of what was going on during the war. And so, but I was too young, and when I got to be 17, I asked my mother if she would sign for me to go in the military so that I could get the World War II GI Bill of Rights. And at that time, you could still get the GI Bill of Rights for World War II, even though the war was over. And so I went in. I went in the Navy, and even though I couldn't swim, I couldn't swim too good. I went in the Navy, and that was, like I said, 1947, and I stayed until pretty close to near the time when the Korean War started in 1950. And when I got discharged in San Francisco, I came home and with the idea that I would go to college and be an engineer, which I had always wanted to be. So I came home, and I had applied for Sneed Junior College because I thought it would be a little easier than going to Auburn. And so I started to school and down at Boaz, Alabama, and then this lasted for about almost a quarter. And my mother called me one day and said, "You've got a call from the president to go back into the military." Back into the military, said because you were in the inactive Naval Reserve, which I had joined when I got discharged from the Navy, and I joined the inactive Naval Reserve because of I thought, or we were told really, that we'd be the last people to be called in case of war or whatever, because we had just gotten out of the regular Navy and we were in the inactive reserves. So, but anyway, it so happened must have been about 12 of us got a call instantly when the Korean War started to report to Birmingham for duty. So I took off to Birmingham and was issued new uniforms and stuff and put on a train. Well, we didn't know where we were going, but we were on our way to Jacksonville, Florida, to a mothball fleet at Green Cove Springs, Florida, and so we arrived down there in the middle of the night. We didn't know for sure what we were going to do or whatever, but it turns out we put mothball ships into duty. They were in mothballs, and so we brought them back alive and gave them to the Navy. The Navy and the Coast Guard took the ships over when we got through with them and used them for wherever. But anyway, that was my stay at Green Cove Springs, Florida. Was real fun because we fished in the afternoon in St. John River, which was a good bass fishing country, and we loved it down there. And but even though we kind of resented having been called up to active duty, and so this lasted for about 15 months, and they finally discharged me again.
Is that one of the watermelon story? Is that, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, Carol likes to tell that I was shot at during the World War II.
No, Korean War. Korean War.
Korean War. And what happened was we were sitting around one evening, a bunch of sailors sitting around deciding what we would like to do. And one of them says, well, let's I know where a watermelon patch is, says, let's go get a water. So we piled in the car and took off down the highway to the watermelon patch and pulled in down through a little old woods road to the watermelon patch. And just as we had jumped out of the car, was running around thumping watermelons, we heard a shotgun blast, and we all ran and jumped back in the car and took off down through the woods. We didn't even look for the highway. We just took off through where the little old woods road went. And so we finally came out way down the highway there, and into the highway. And anyway, I guess, I don't know if we even got a watermelon or not, but that was Carol's tale that I was shot at during the war.
So after your stay there, when you came back home, did you enlist in Auburn automatically?
Yeah, I'd always wanted to be an engineer, and I always really wanted to go to Auburn, and
at the time it was Alabama
Polytechnic Institute, and but it was, of course, at Auburn. That's how it got its name. But so I applied for Auburn and was given accepted, and I went to the first day of school. I was staying in an old army barracks. It didn't have any heat in it. It was real frigid cold, and so I slept on bunk beds under a mattress and on a mattress, and finally the day came that Magnolia Hall, which was brand new at that time, opened, and I was given they called me and told me I had a room, and so I felt like I just really done something great. And so anyway, that was my dormitory, starting my dormitory life, and that lasted to the end of till I graduated.
So after you became an engineer, can you tell us about your involvement in sort of the space race and?
Well, it when I was when I graduated, I was looking for something that I thought I would really enjoy doing, and I thought that TVA people came down to interview us, and I thought, well, that is real interesting. I would be a communication engineer and cover an area of TVA's area. And so anyway, they offered me a job, and I took it. And when I graduated, they sent me to Chattanooga, and I had to undergo a year of classroom training. You have to do this before TVA will let you anywhere around a substation, a dam, or steam plant. And so anyway, I fulfilled that, and at that time they sent me to Huntsville as a communication engineer for this area of North Alabama and Southern Tennessee. And one day, well, I had people at Huntsville, TVA people that had come to Huntsville didn't stay with TVA long because the Space Center out there offered more money. So I went out there one day to see what was going on, what it was like. Anyway, I came home with a job offer in the Astronautics Laboratory at ABMA, which was under Dr. von Braun, but it was an Army organization. That was before NASA. And then in 1960, NASA was formed, and Dr. von Braun, our whole group, went over to NASA. And so I spent all those years at NASA and working on everything from moon buggies to satellites and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And when it come time for me to retire, I was a team person. I had the what they call avionics aboard a satellite, which is the guidance navigation control system.
Mm-hmm.
And we had launched this satellite as a communication satellite for orbit, synchronous orbit, which was 23,000 miles high. And I had those things, and I was sitting on the console when we fired it from the Cape. And when we fired it, it had a burn through at the engine, and the engine went into the rocket went into a tailspin, and we lost this real expensive satellite.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the beginning of the end, because at that time I was signed to a Tiger team in Seattle, Washington. And so in Seattle, I was working with the Air Force and trying to solve the problem of what actually happened. And of course, everybody thought that it was my stuff, my hardware that had failed. And of course, I kept saying it wasn't my hardware.
Was it?
No, it wasn't. It was the engine. The rocket engine had a burn through.
Yeah.
And that brought the engine to a
tailspin.
To a weird angle, and the whole rocket started going in whirly. So
can you? Oh.
And this led me to. I was beginning to not enjoy staying in Seattle that long, because I was working under NASA headquarters instead of the headquarters out here. And so anyway, that led me closer to thinking about retiring. And but during my time with NASA was very interesting, because I worked on all kinds of things, everything you can think of that NASA had going.
And also, didn't you help with the experimenting, like with the atomic bombs?
Oh, that was about 1947, when one of the first things that I did when I went in the Navy was to be sent to the South Pacific to the atom bomb tests. And so while I was down there, I worked with a group of scientists from Stanford, California, and they were biologists and botanists and whatever.
Yeah.
And so what we did, we were on an aircraft carrier. We sat on the deck of the aircraft carrier on a boat, and as soon as the bombs blasted, we would go into the island and beach the boat and walk around the island looking at dead birds and all the chewed off coconut trees and stuff that had the bomb had blasted. But we did that for, it was 3 different bomb tests that I was in there. And of course everything you looked at was highly radioactive, but we carried all kind of instruments on us, Geiger counters and dosimeters and film badges and stuff that we could monitor at the end of the day and find out if we had a lethal dose of radiation.
Yeah.
And but we'd come back aboard ship from a trip over on the beach and have to change our clothes and then put our clothes in a bag and carry it out in the middle of the bay and sink it, and this kind of thing. And that was, but that lasted a few months, and but it was very interesting. And but anyway, that was it.
Well, since I know you grew up in the country a little bit, you know, like, did you experience any sort of segregation, or like, did you ever really like pay attention to that, or was it just something you were used to?
No, we were, when I grew up as a young boy, while at Peaceburg, we had neighbors that were black, and they had a bunch of kids, and I grew up with those kids, and we played in the woods and did all sorts of things, you know, just what kids and boys do. And that was before the Army took over the area.
Yeah. But as far as like, because I know growing up in the cities, you'd probably see more, you know, segregation about.
Yeah, nobody thought about that sort of thing.
Yeah, it was just.
It was, your neighbors were good neighbors, and now we have, every year we have a cemetery cleaning down at in the middle of that area. The Army lets you go down there for the day and clean off the graves and stuff, so you always meet the old neighbors, and quite often there's some of the black families are there, and they're like meeting kinfolks. They're just
They're like family.
They're so proud to see each other.
Yeah.
And so, but that's we didn't have anything. And a few years ago, about 1990, I guess, I wrote an article called "Peaceburg: A Dream," and it's because Peaceburg no longer exists. It exists only in your memory. And so it was strictly is a dream now, and it then was real, but now it's just a dream because it's
not real.
Not real. And but you know, we can go down there every year at a certain time, usually Memorial Day, and clean the graves, and we could have a sandwich in an area there. But we can't do that anymore because the military's gotten strict about the reservation and stuff. And now you have to sign in at the gate and go straight to the graveyard and straight back and this kind of thing. And it's
just a big hassle.
They took all the fun out of it.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So that's your history, I guess.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How do you know how long this has been?
It's been 19. It's almost been 20 minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe we ought to do it again. That was, just call that a dry.
No.
Huh?
No.